So hi, that's a U.S. Army and United States flags. And there's a thought, an idea that I have based on one of my experiences. And I wonder how the things that are happening in the technology space are going to affect that idea, not next year or 5 years from now, but 20 years from now. And it's this: how does someone develop intuition? How does someone develop the core understanding of whether something is a good idea, of whether something is a viable option, of whether something is even worth pursuing? When I was a lieutenant, I was often surprised, not a shocked kind of way, but in a curious kind of way. How do they know that? And I'm going to use the male pronoun several times in the course of the next couple minutes, because mostly because I'm thinking about specific people. And so when I say he, I'm thinking about a particular person at a particular point in my history. And in my case, I never worked directly for a female officer who outranked me. I worked parallel. I had peers, and I had the bosses of my peers, but not my personal boss. So when I say he in this sentence, in this conversation, I'm not saying women don't have leadership responsibilities and authorities, because absolutely they do. Okay. So I've had several experiences as a lieutenant, as a young captain, where I thought, he just told us not to do what we were indicating that we thought we were going to do. How does he know what we were suggesting wasn't a good idea? But it would play out, and sure enough, his choice to not let us go down that particular path ended up being a good idea. And it ended up being an indication of what I would now call wisdom. And it made me wonder how they come to that place where they can make those quick judgment calls without doing the deep analysis and saving us from having to do the deep analysis. Fast forward about 10 years, and I was working as a plan team leader at First Corps, and I could tell very clearly in this planning process which direction our general wanted us to go. And maybe I was surprised, but what I noticed was he didn't tell us to go that path. He told us to go through the entire planning process. And I watched as my peers, the majors and lieutenant colonels, processed through multiple iterations of that planning process. And what I noticed is that I was starting to get that same level of intuition where I could tell if something was just, there's no point in us continuing down this path, it's not going to work out. And I realized that the reason I was achieving that level was so I was able to begin sensing what good choices might be of the choices that were available. And And what this makes me wonder is, if the entry-level jobs disappear, how does someone build the foundation of their industry knowledge? If the entry-level jobs are all performed by some level of automation or robotics, how does one grow their level of just intuitive sense for how their industry works? And honestly, I don't have an answer. It's just something that I'm wondering about. Yeah, so that's my musings for the day, and also got a chance to test a little bit of my Wi-Fi reach in my yard. All right, so I'm Keith Bashirs. I'm the Bald Guy. I'm a former Army planner, Army aviator, airborne ranger, and I help small businesses with marketing theory, tactics, techniques, training, and technology.